Hello, hi, I'm Kylan Echo, and I want to let you know that doing VR on Linux is possible, and I've been doing it on Bazite for a couple of days now. Now, basically, what you have to do is you have to install certain packages in order to be able to make sure that it works. The whole point about being able to use VR on Linux is to make sure it's more accessible so that way you're not stuck on something like Windows. And how I was able to do it, it's incredible, actually. And I want to show you how I was able to get this done. But first, I want to talk about VrChat. VrChat is one of those de facto programs that people want to use when they are VTubing. So they might use it for meet and greets, they might use it for using their model in general, and it also supports Spout 2. It supports Spout 2 just fine. And it's doing it through Spout 2 Capture. I managed to go ahead and do a Spout 2 stream with it, and it handled everything just fine, including stuff through the Proton RTSP that you'd have to use with it. I do have a launch option that I would want to also include in the guide as well, and I want to make sure that we have like this opportunity, and I want to show people how we can actually get this working. And it doesn't matter how you're able to do it. It should support, and it does support on a lot of Linux distributions. I'm just using an atomic distribution or an immutable distro, but it's still not impossible considering that I at least had enough freedom to do this with like stuff like DistroBox, being able to RPM OS tree install things, as well as be able to get things installed with Brew and Homebrew. But, if you're on an OS like Pika OS, Linux Mint, there are install steps on the Linux VR Adventures wiki. And there are also a bunch of things that are really not mentioned on there. So, getting this figured out on Linux is incredible. Because you get access to all these worlds. You get access to a lot of things. Especially when you're, being able to go into a 3D space. Like the first time that you go into VR, it's crazy. It's crazy good. Let me do this real quick. It's incredible. Like, look at me. Ta-da! Hello. So, I ended up doing this because I felt like that it was something that I eventually needed to do, and being able to get something like this set up is, I would say, like not very super easy in terms of trying to get things working. Now, I have a Quest 1. I don't have the best VR headset in the world, but it does work, and it works for what it's intended to. Now, I did notice that I did have a little bit of an issue with audio earlier, but if you're going to be using audio through your headset, there's a couple things you need to be aware of. So, with the Oculus One, I used WIVRN, which is a program that you would have to sideload. And basically, what you do is you hook your headset up while you have the Android toolset installed on your computer. And I'll be showing you more of that stuff as well. Besides that, if you are able to use VR, that's cool. You can even just upload your model to VrChat without a VR headset, because they made that possible a couple years back as well. And being able to take advantage of a bunch of things is pretty interesting and pretty neat as well. And you also get access to a lot of other things. Okay, so we have this set up as far as like the recording goes. If you try to enable the background or the skybox, it fucks the recording up. So there's that. But you can see the screens as well, so that's good. And you'll be able to see everything that you're doing. And this is basically how WaveVR is. You can still get access to like a keyboard if you want it or if you need it. It's pretty decent, pretty good. And if I were to enable the skybox or turn the pass-through off, it's gonna fuck everything up. So if you're going to record anything on your headset, on a Quest 1 at least, you need to still enable the pass-through for this, because other than that, it's not going to really record very well. Especially if it's going to be on like a headset specifically. There's no way that you can do this as far as like trying to show basically what you're able to look at as far as like any sort of Twitch chat goes. You may be able to access certain things when you take a look at the watch, and you know, take a look at the mouse fixes, but no mouse fixes. Of course, there's like a bunch of things that you can do, but you know, it really just depends on if it's going to capture your mouse there or not. So you can always, gives you something to fiddle around with. You set normal and then full 3D if you want it. You can change the curvature of everything as well, which is pretty cool. This is OBS, so basically you could change the curvature of this depending on how well everything's being recorded. You can see how this is. You can change the opacity, change some angle fade if you want to, additive blending, right? So you can kind of make it semi-transparent if you wanted to. There's positioning. You can change how things get positioned. You can make it to where it follows your headset. You can make it to where it's floating. You can make it to where it follows your left hand. Oh God. Or follows the right hand. You can pin it if you want to. And you can kind of just move it around if you want as well. And then you have the disable grab, where it disables the grab function, and you have a lock it, where you can like lock it in place, or you can like lock the interaction, so that way it's not really going to mess with anything. And you can do a whole bunch of positioning with this. This basically lets you create a whole bunch of virtual inputs, and it's really cool to be able to do something like that. Typically when I'm looking at things, I kind of like zooming in and out, and I just, you know, I kind of like to have control of the entire thing. Not only that, you know, when you are in WAVR, this is basically what Steam VR was. So you're able to basically choose whatever games you're able to choose, or else be able to go into. So if we were to go into, you know, choose the games, we can actually go ahead and just launch right into VrChat. And this should just launch just fine, considering the pass-through thing has been figured out. Sometimes it will do that. It's really nothing. But you did get a whole bunch of access to like basically everything that's on your desktop. This is a streaming computer, so we do have this, at least as far as this goes. And this is basically like, you know, how we're using the VR, because we have to like do a bunch of things. It's basically get to see the whole general consensus. I can see everything fine. You just can't see what I'm looking at, basically. I just wanted to like give you a little bit of like an idea of like how this works. But you can kind of like freely open up the windows. You'll be able to see like the watch and everything, and then you'll be able to like go about doing basically anything you need. Of course, things are kind of like relative to the headset. So basically it's just assuming on how you're like looking at everything and how everything's being recorded. But one of the cool things about using Linux, especially when it comes to VR, is getting everything to work. Because you get yourself a little camera like this, and you can enable the Spout stream, because Spout does work. And it's really cool that it does. You can actually have it set to, it shows the streamer mode. You can have it set to where it is changing your behavior, having it looking at you, have it more precise and, you know, focused on you while you are doing videos. And you even get the option of like being able to change its orientation depending on like what kind of videos you're doing. So like, I mean, if you want to do like YouTube shorts, I mean, this is literally the perfect way to do it. You just may have to like change how certain things work and then change how the orientation is. But regardless, I mean, it's still an option to being able to get, you know, to be able to use VrChat for any sort of content creation. And content creation is one of the things that VTubers need the most. And I figured, you know, maybe if we were to get VrChat working in a more comprehensive way, at least for Oculus users, then it should work. Now, if you have a Steam VR headset, Steam VR will just work. and this will solve like 95% of your problems. You may even be able to get a pass-through window working through Steam VR as long as certain things are installed for that, which regardless you should still be fine. There's a thing called Envision. Envision is another pass-through program that is also on the Linux VR Adventures wiki page, but this is mainly for people who have had Oculuses until like a Steam frame comes out. Regardless, this is still good information to have because most people are going to have an Oculus. I have an Oculus One. I end up using it for basically VR to be, be fair about a lot of things, and I think it's really cool. I am very impressed with how this is even working on Linux just, so far. And it kind of makes a lot of things even better for Linux users as a whole. Because Steam VR and VrChat, VrChat is one of the de facto VR places that people kind of hang out and talk. And it kind of like makes it even like more surreal when you're, importing your VTuber model into stuff like Unity or using Alcom. And yeah, I can move my fingers and everything. You could do things like finger moves. I kind of turned it off, but you can kind of do that. You can do hand tracking on every Quest headset, so that isn't even a bad thing. I mean, if you wanted like more precise hand tracking, you could do that. I mean, you should be able to do that as well. It's just, you might have a pop-up from VrChat telling you about it. But it's pretty good, and I really do like it. And I really do recommend using Linux VR on, any Linux distribution you can get your hands on. Because this basically works on everything. The way I'm doing this is I'm using a program called WIVRN. And with WIVRN, basically, it is a program that allows Oculus headsets to be connected either via USB or via Wi-Fi. But you have to make sure that you're on the same gotta make sure your headset's in the same network that your computer's on in order for it to work. And then it will open up a bunch of ports for you. It'll go ahead and fix a bunch of things. It'll make it about as seamless as possible. And you technically only need WIVRN for an Oculus headset, but if you're a streamer, I would recommend getting WaveVR, because WaveVR comes in an app image. It's also on the AUR, and there might be an Ubuntu deb package somewhere. You may be able to even install it via a DistroBox container if you want to, but generally it's much easier just to grab the app image and install a bunch of dependencies, which I'll show you how to do as well. Basically, in order to get WIVRN and WaveVR installed, with WaveVR, you're going to grab the app image, and you could find WaveVR on the GitHub page or on their website, and you would just grab their latest app image, and you would launch it. And basically what you do is when you go ahead and install WaveVR, it gives you the ability to look at your whole desktop. You can create virtual windows for this, and even connect individual windows as well. To like launch applications and stuff. You could do this one of two ways. You could do this either RPM OS tree, and what you would do is you would go ahead and go to the terminal, the RPM WIVRN, and then WIVRN dashboard. And basically what you do is you'd be able to install that. There's also a thing called there's extra hardware that you'd want to install as well. And you have to RPM OS tree install this stuff. If you take a look, you're also going to need to get RPM OS tree install Android tools, so that way you could do ADB. And once you do that, you're also going to want to have the Qt5 multimedia, OpenXR, OpenVR API, OpenHDMD, OpenCV video, OpenCV, the Onyx runtime, and well, yeah, I mean, you may just need everything up to here from what I'm currently seeing. So yeah, it's pretty good. It basically lets you install this stuff. as far as that goes. And basically the command would look like something like this. And I will have two, and then once you click install, it's going to ask you to do a reboot, which is you do that by systemctl reboot. So you'll end up popping up and it'll be saying, you'll go ahead and install it. It says already requested. And then all of a sudden, like, you start installing it, and then you do that. And then you do the systemctl reboot. I already have this stuff installed on this system, which is why I can't really show you specifically with this, because I've already done this. There's also a thing that you can look at by Matrix Fury, and with this uses Homebrew. So you do brew install Envision OCI, but that's after you grab the one-line install where it grabs Homebrew XR, which is basically what this is for. And then you go ahead and install Envision OCI. Then Envision OCI will let you do that. And if you also take a look at their repository and you click on where it says Homebrew XR, you can then also install the other stuff as well. And then you should have a program called Envision. You just click on it. And this stuff's typically just for the Steam machine. This may have some impact as far as like enabling WAVR for that, so that way the system can read it. Something weird goes on, but you end up getting a, it gives you the option to plug in your devices to be able to use VR. But they give you a bunch of stuff that you can go buy. You can click on distros. Fedora Atomic Bazzite, you got NixOS, you got OpenSUSE, you got Void Linux. As far as some distros that can do some of this stuff. But most of this you can just kind of just install. These are like super specific for these distros, which is really cool. The Envision stuff on here is outdated, but the information is there, which is good. I just can't show you because I've already done this. And basically, after everything's said and done, if you boot up WAVR, it's gonna pop this up, and then there should be a window that shows up. It says plug in your VR headset, and you can load up WIVRN. And WIVRN will be here as well. There is a wizard that you can go through with WIVRN. That way, like if you have the ADB dev rules installed, you have to enable developer mode in your headset. If this is for like a Meta headset, what you can do is say you have a Meta Quest, like 1, 2, Pro, 3, or 3S. Just follow these steps. Go ahead and enable your developer mode. Make sure USB debugging is enabled as well. And then you'll see a pop-up in your headset, and it will show up in the headset asking you to basically do the whole USB debugging thing, which is something that has to happen in order for you to be able to even install WIVRN. Then basically what ends up happening is you get the option to install it on your headset. That then lets you end up using Monando, open stuff. And then basically you also have the option of whenever it pops up, but you do get the option to use the command. And then what you can do is it just allows you to be able to do things with that. And the command that you can use, actually I can probably show you if I close up this other stuff. So say you were to grab WIVRN via Flatpak, but you can also do as well. So if you use WIVRN server, you can install it via FlatHub or Flatpak. Then take you through here. You then get the information for the pressure vessel. You get the for Steam games, right-click Steam game properties. Basically, this is what you mainly need, but it may end up providing you with a more or a different sort of thing when it comes to that. And then you'll be able to play your VR games on Bazzite. The Bazzite, the way that you have to do it through Bazzite is sort of straightforward. It's just kind of weird in a way. Like, I could uninstall Wyvern server and try to reinstall it, but you basically get the idea. You're gonna get a better idea when I go ahead and do it another way by getting things working getting things working with Nobara, because Nobara is basically Fedora with drivers. So we're gonna go ahead and switch over to that. This is just a small look into the Bazite part of it, because I've already done this and I want to make sure people can like at least know. There will be a written guide on what you need to do in order to make sure things are working properly on Bazite. I just could not show you what I wanted to show you tonight because it's not something that I can do at the moment. It's something I just don't feel like uninstalling, but I will have steps in the guide online as well. But you will get a good idea because the steps aren't too far off as far as like getting things installed for like Nobara, I would believe, because it's also Fedora. So we're gonna go ahead and just switch over to that real quick. So, you know, it says updates are available. Let's go ahead and update your system. I'm gonna go ahead and just pull your updates. I do like how they have changed their updates with Nobara. I can sort of just, you know, I could sort of recommend this. Let me see here. Yeah, they also got rid of the older NVIDIA Pascal GPUs. So if you had relied on them, do not use that. So say you have like a 1080 Ti, you may as well just stay on Linux Mint or Zorin OS, or an OS that still supports that, because a lot of OSs are sort of moving away from it, and the fact that Linux Mint would probably still continue to... You can't do power profiles. Okay. So basically what you can do is, when you are in Nobara, and you do happen to have Bazaar, you can grab Wyvern. You can get the Flatpak. The Flatpak should still work on a system like this. The system isn't like locked down to anything, so you're not really having to get the system package if you don't really need it. But the idea is to be able to get these installed and running. You sort of want gear lever as well. So grab gear lever. So what we're going to do is, once that's installed, we're going to... You know how to open up Wyvern if you want. Next, ADB is not installed. So when you're in a situation where ADB is not installed, what you do is you go here, you go to your console, you do sudo enf install Android tools. It's going to ask for your password. It's going to go ahead and load the repository. You're going to be able to install Android tools because you're going to need that. Then once you do that, there's a couple of other things you should probably install. Like sudo tnf install XR hardware, which in Bazite's situation, it's not sudo dnf, you're doing rpm os tree install, but they pull from like similar package sets. So go ahead and do that. Grab the XR hardware because you're going to need that. And then if I were to go take a look at the packages, you're also going to need sudo enf install the following: opencv, opencv video, openhmd, openvr API, openxr, Qt5, Qt multimedia, And if you want, you could also grab Wyvern and Wyvern dashboard. If you're not getting it via Flatpak. So I just install it. It's gonna ask you, yes, do you want to install all this stuff? Hit yes. In Bazite's situation, if you were going to do something like this, it would require a restart. However, it's installed on the system as of right now, because that's how non-immutable distros work when it comes to something like this. If you're going to use something like Brew to install things, you don't have to do restarts. It automatically just installs it on Bazite. That is maybe where the thing where people are kind of like thinking, oh, you know, can't do a lot on Bazite. You can do just as much, but yeah, you kind of get the deal. Now, not only are we going to be doing this, we're also going to be installing 2 more things. So, how are you going to update and install? How are you going to, you know, how are you going to how are you going to upload models to do VR stuff? Well, you need something called Alcom. And Alcom is the open source VrChat creator companion. Now, when you download it, it gives you the option to grab some stuff. Now, if your distro can do it, you could do it via app image, or you can take a look at the all versions and you click on like maybe the beta 2 and you get the option to install it via RPM. It's recommended to possibly use the app image. For some reason, Bazite's missing some things where you can't use the app image, so I had to install it via RPM. However, I did that via DistroBox, so this is going to be about the same. So what you do is you just download that, save it, and you also grab the Unity Hub, which I'm only going to install them on here. I'll show you how they work on the desktop side of things. Red Hat is basically Red Hat Enterprise. That's Fedora. So if you want to grab the latest version of that, because CentOS is also technically Fedora as well. You just go to their website at unity.com with their documents, and you just paste that in there. It adds the repo. Then you just do this. Do it via yum. Then it's going to go ahead and install it. Hit yes. It's going to install it anyways. Hit yes. Because you're going to need it like this, because basically Alcom and Unity Hub needs to be like, they need to have like very similar package sets. Very similar. Because we already have Wyvern, you know, ADB is installed, right? The Android tools are installed on here. I'm not sure as to why it's saying that. But you would take this, you'd put this into the launch options for a game. But this is the Flatpak version, so probably won't do that with that one. Fix that real quick. But you get the idea, right? And then like if you're gonna go ahead and get WAVR, well, open that with gear lever, edit the app menu, run the app. Or you can find it here. So then go ahead and pull the app up. In order for it to actually show up, you actually have to run SteamVR. So we will do that. rename, copy, sudo enf install, and then paste that. Just do it via terminal. It's easier to do it like that anyways. And it's installed. Transaction failed. Oh, okay, so there's like a file system conflict with this OS. Okay, so I guess we're just gonna grab the app image and hope for the best. Let me see if Fuse is installed. Okay, so it's already installed. The other way of doing things is you can actually grab DistroBox. And that's something that we made us do. If there's an issue, we will just use it via DistroBox. Because that is a thing as well when it comes to systems, which is, I guess that's probably where Bazzite kind of stands out, is it doesn't really have file system conflicts, as you can't really mess with the file system. But on most other distributions you can. However, if you want to isolate your system, keep it fresh, you could run a distro box and just install everything via your distro boxes and kind of just have it like running that way, which you can do that. It's a way of doing things. That's why like getting access to DistroBox on Bazzite is very essential, because it kind of just lets you run things the way you want to. But yeah, you should have Unity Hub. And there is a specific version of Unity that you're going to need via Unity Hub. So yeah, you get the option to sign in. It's going to ask you to sign into everything. And you get to do that. Then I can show you basically how you would basically... then I could basically show you how you would use it. But as of right now, we're just basically just installing things. So we got that. Now for Alcom, in a situation like this, if you are using this, you can grab the app image and you can kind of just run it via GearLever. So if you were to just click on that, yeah, whatever. Go ahead and just open this via GearLever. Move the app menu and you can kind of launch this. It's going to ask, basically, you can enable GUI applications. You can go ahead and, you'll find Unity Hub. Go ahead and hit next on stuff. Use the Alcom scheme if you want. Start using Alcom, and then you can start doing this. If you want to create a new project, it's then going to download the correct version of Unity. And this is going to be for VrChat avatars. Go ahead and hit create. And then it creates the SDK, and you can download a whole bunch of packages for this. So you get access to that. Which this does work in this context here because it's not missing certain things that are required for, viewing what's going on here. I'm not sure as to what's going on with Bazzite. I probably just need to RPM OS tree install stuff in order to see applications like this better. But it's also easier to just run it through a distro box and it just starts working that way too. So that was Alcom, and Alcom and Unity Hub, they are required to be installed. Both of them are. And WAVR, you're going to be using the app image, but you need to make sure Steam VR is active in order to use it. And you basically install all of the necessary things in order for it to start working. Then what you do is you can go ahead and grab something like, you go ahead and grab what you need. I'm going to show you the rest of it on my other computer. So let me do that. Are the same packages you would basically install anywhere else. You're just doing it maybe differently, and it's still giving you the same results. So, and this is for Oculus users. So in order to be able, in order to be able to use WaveVR, you have to have Steam VR installed. And I believe you also have to use the pressure vessel stuff as well. You can change the run times if you need to, if you know what you're doing. And I think I'm using opencomposite. Yes, I am currently using opencomposite. There is a way to do openxr as well. I'll leave a link of that into the description, but yeah, you just basically get the option for that. And then, you use your Steam Runtime Scout. This will work if you have an Oculus Rift. It'll work if you have a HTC Vive in the upcoming Steam frame. However, if you want something like this to work, you do need to have WIVR installed. So WIVR will activate Steam VR. And then there will be a page for WIVR right here. So basically wherever that window came here, this is technically where the Steam VR stuff's happening. Now, can this actually do the VR view stuff? Probably not. But it does help create an interface for your headset to be so you can actually see things as you're doing them. If you're trying to connect your headset, you need to have WIVRN, which in my case, I have WIVRN installed to the base system. And this is what runs the server. This is what connects it to it. The first time you do it, you have to, pair it up to the headset after you install it to the headset, because it allows you to install the app. It allows you to do a whole bunch of things. You go through the wizard, you install over ADB, developer mode, stuff I've already talked about. Then you go ahead and do all this stuff, and you kind of finish it, basically. And then you have that whole pressure vessel thing with stuff like VrChat, which for most people who are VTubing, you would do it via VrChat. That way you're not crashing, basically. So let me go ahead and go over that really briefly as well. So when you have Proton Plus or Proton Up QT, so you're given this, you can then click on where it says Proton RTSP. You click on that, and what you do is you click on the most recent one, which this one's the GE Proton 10-33 RTSP 24-1. And in a past video, I also installed Spout 2, and Spout 2 will work with this. However, you need the command, and this is the whole entire command you need to make sure all of this works. This is the entire command you need. You need to be able to see pressure vessel import openxr runtime, VR override, run opencomposite or xriser, depending on how you have that installed. I may switch this to xriser eventually. You need the WINEDLLOVERRIDES overrides. So you need this as well. This is going to prevent that Proton from crashing in certain worlds that play video players or streams. And then you also need to have Spout 2 installed. And how you have Spout 2 installed, if you have not seen a previous video, is you download it from the repository, and then you extract it, rename it to Spout 2, and then it will be right here. And Spout 2 will be able to project itself over to the main thing when it comes to Spout Pipewire video, basically. So it sends it over to Pipewire video, which is really good. And then you have the %command %, and then it goes ahead and sends everything over. And in games or applications that require Spout 2, you can do that. This also makes it to where once you have GE Proton 10-33, it goes ahead and loads everything up. It installs Spout 2 into that as well, and then it just starts working. And then it loads up Steam VR like it should be. You'll then be into your world, and you'll be able to see your model and everything. So that's pretty cool. And then, if you have Spout installed, you'll be able to see everything on Spout, which I'm kind of surprised this is actually picking up my mic. Yeah, it's picking up the default mic, which is crazy, but it works, I guess. But yeah, it picks up the mic. You'll be able to see everything. Be able to run around in VrChat if you want to. If you wanted to open up your camera, you could as well. Just kind of just use a Spout camera, Spout stream, and then it kind of just sends it over to that. And basically, if you wanted to use the Spout stream for that, you just switch it over to the appropriate one, and then, you know, change your focus, have it set to look at me, give it smooth, kind of have it out here, and then you can kind of just see everything, which is really cool. You can kind of just, you know, run around with your camera if you want. You could just close this, and then you can kind of just run around and stuff. Now, I'm not in VR right now, but like I was in VR earlier, which you'll probably see me in VR again. But yeah, it is. It's a good thing. It's really good. When it comes to like using VR, you can see like your friends and everything. You do stuff like this. It kind of elevates the experience when it comes to VTubing. But as long as you have this kind of stuff installed with like WAVVR, WIVRN, whether it's the app image or the Flatpak or the system packages, basically how you're able to do it with an Oculus Quest, for example, then you'll be able to actually use it in your system. I managed to even get the model myself onto VrChat, something I didn't think that was possible. And the model looks really good too, so that's like incredible, you know? Because this is the same model I was using on like my other streams too, when I was using stuff for like VNeon and stuff. And it kind of makes things even more expressive, especially when you're, you know, moving around a lot, doing a lot of things, you know, moving your hands, and you know, being able to get that feel of like, you know, this is like the, like if Live 2D is the most popular form of VTubing, then this is also a popular form of 3D VTubing, because some of the best VTubers have came from VrChat, like Zentreya and Fillion. So like, you know, both of them, you know, were on there, and there's also a bunch of other VTubers have used VrChat in the past, like Shy Lily as well. But you know, if you want to use VR, anybody can do it. That's the cool thing about that. Cool thing about using Linux as well, since VrChat's free and Linux is open source. It's like a match made in heaven when it comes to a lot of things, and it's something that I would definitely recommend doing, especially when we're in a day and age where we have ID verification and everything. Now, VrChat does have ID verification, and that is something that is definitely, you know, something that you can choose to do, but you don't have to, right? You can kind of still do all the free stuff, keep your private instances, you know, enjoy the world, still enjoy talking with people, because basically what it is a social platform. It's a social platform. Yeah, basically it's a social platform, and it's also a VTubing application, because you can stream the viewers live, and you can talk to people about stuff. And you may even be able to play some VrChat games as well that people have made in their own communities. So that's really cool too as well. And I think like getting this access to be able to use this, especially when VrChat is Steam Deck verified, kind of opened the door for a lot of things. The problem was trying to get it working in the first place. Now, since we're going to be having the, you know, hopefully when this whole crisis stops happening when it comes to Steam VR, and when it comes to stuff like the Steam Frame, Steam Machine, Steam Deck, when we stop this whole crisis of like the whole AI fucking bullshit happening, then basically, you know, you're going to have that whole ecosystem going on where you can like boot up your Steam machine, go into Steam VR, you're on Linux, it's good, it works, you get the performance that you need out of it. And, you know, I'm very glad that Linux is making strides to make itself better. It's not trying to be another Windows. It's trying to be better than that, which is basically what everything should be. You know, you always strive to be better, you know, than a lot of things. And even if you are getting to the top, you can still keep going. So, like, there's always that. But yeah, if you've enjoyed the video, go ahead and leave a comment down in the comment section below. Please like, subscribe, and if you want to support me, you can support me on my Ko-Fi. And I hope to see you then. And if you have any problems, make sure you join the Discord below. You can either join the community Discord, or you can join the VTuber tech support Discord that I have. So, I'm here to help people out, and that's all I really care about, is I want to help people out, especially when it comes to technology like this. I understand using stuff on Linux is very scary for a lot of people who want to do this, but trust me, once you start using Linux, you're going to start to understand and be like, oh, this is cool, It's much better. You have way more control over your desktop. You got way more control over a lot of things. But anyways, I'll catch you later. Bye-bye.